Hey, it is time. What time is it? It's time for Poduty in the News. What a great guest I have coming up this morning. Bubba Startz. Bubba, welcome to the show.
Jeff, thanks for having me, man. This is a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
I saw your live yesterday and you were outside. You were bundled up. It looked like a blizzard compared to the weather we have here in Pittsburgh. Where were you? You were just walking around in like a whiteout condition. What kind of weather did you have yesterday?
Just a little bit of snow, kind of our first snow of the year here in South Dakota. A little bit late, actually, for what we usually get, but not quite white out. Sometimes it'll snow horizontally. So
Do you know about how much average snowfall you get out there? You probably get more wind than snow, I would guess.
here in eastern South Dakota, it's considerably less. I'm not sure what we average, but the town that I grew up in the mountains in western South Dakota in the Black Hills, we average like 280 inches a year.
Oh, 280. I think Pittsburgh is like 50.
We're probably closer to that in eastern South Dakota, but like you said, it all kind of blows in and blows out here on the plains.
Yeah. Well, Bubba, I have just one question for you. Do you know what time it is?
It's time for Poduty and the News.
What time is it? What time is it? It's time for Poduty and the News. Poduty and the News. The only live news podcast about podcasting from the stage. Poduty and the News. Poduty and the News. The only live news podcast about podcasting from the stage.
Poduty and the News. Bubba, welcome to the show. It's Bubba Startz, everybody.
I love the theme song. I was grooving.
Once that bass line kicks in, it gets you out of your seat, gets the blood pumping. We call this show Coffee with Poduty and the Crew. As of today, Bubba is officially part of the Poduty and the News crew. And
I got my coffee.
all right. What we say is we're busy all week. We're doing things. We're planning events. Some of us are working full-time jobs. We're recording a lot of podcasts in the evening, but Saturday is just like that time for podcasters. Let's sit back. Let's have a cup of coffee together. Let's talk about what's going on in the podcast industry, what's going on with each other. And honestly, Bubba was probably one of the first people that reached out to me last June when I opened this theater space. And like almost instantly, he got the concept. He was already like, let's do some events. Let's start working together. How can we support each other? And I was always really grateful for that conversation. And we reached out, we reconnected about 2 weeks ago, and we booked this event. I was so excited to bring you back, and I always wanted to just publicly thank you. Like you were there from the beginning and really kind of saw what this like DIY movement I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, well, and it probably helps that I come from the live event space, right? I'm a musician. I've been a songwriter, and for 25 years, I've been doing nothing but live events, and then got into podcasting. So where a lot of podcasters now are like coming from their home studio and trying to figure out how to do that in the real world, I'm coming from the space of I have seen how to do this and have built a career out of building live events. Now I'm just putting microphones and cameras in these spaces, capturing it and bringing it out there. So when I saw you post about this show and what it means is like, well, this is a perfect fit for me and something that I can bring a lot of, not just insight, but some great commentary on.
Yeah, I think after we spoke that first time, you were like immediately leaving for a 20 city tour. Like you were just like, I'm getting on the road tomorrow. I'll see you.
Well, and podcasting has brought such a different angle to what I do. No longer am I just beholden to bars or restaurants that have live music and only having that one event. Now I can podcast and be in 3 or 4 different places during the day, doing interviews, supporting local businesses and local artists, and then also performing at night. So I can get out on the road, and it's not necessarily about a 2 to 4 hour performance now. It's about, I'm in this city, how much can I get done? And that's probably the reason that we won the Content Creator of the Year award this year from the Midwest Country Music Organization, is that I'm not scared to put that microphone in anyone's face and to spotlight and showcase their business or art or whatever they may be doing.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up, and, I think you returned from that, and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to an award show." You did win the Content Creator Award. Tell us a little bit about that award and what it meant to you after all these things you've been working on digitally.
Well, and it's so cool because the organization, the Midwest Country Music Organization, where we won the award from, it's voted on by the members. And I had really spent that year, the show and the scene projects really kicked off from the Midwest Country Music Organization award show the year prior, where I just showed up. I had just started this podcast, but I knew that I was never going to have a better chance if artists were who I was interested in interviewing. I had an opportunity to sit down where I knew, a couple hundred of them were going to be in one place at one time. So we brought our microphones with us to that first year in 2024. And I sat down and did 25 interviews at Jam Night the night before the show. And that kind of kick-started our whole operation through the summer of 24 and into the fall, obviously connecting with all these people and doing most of our interviews over, Zoom or now StreamYard, like we're doing here today. I was able to capitalize off of all those connections that I already had kind of in my network. So it was really cool to see all of them turn around and to vote for us after we received the nomination. To be able to stand on that stage that a year prior I had stood and been like, this is what I want to do. These are the people that I want to do it with. And now we're, kind of leveraging that award into access to other award shows like the Josie Music Awards down in Nashville. Jeff, I was just working the red carpet at the Grand Ole Opry House a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. I mean, that's like your Babe Ruth moment a year prior. You stood on that stage and this is what I want, and then you set all that in motion with all that content, and you're doing something in a field that you love. Like you mentioned, you go tour. What else can I do while I'm on tour? Well, I can do a podcast show. I can meet the local talent. I can interview them, put them in the spotlight. And it's one of these things, and you're in that perfect niche. And exactly what we talk about here is if you love something, there's other people who love what you do. They love the same things that you love, and you're bringing that community together through music, through these meetups, and just connecting on a whole nother level that you couldn't do just by trying to sell a CD or download an MP3 file of your music. You're making these deeper connections.
Right. And music has become so devalued in society now that, the record companies and Spotify have kind of taken all the money out of it for independent creators that I had to find something else. I had to adjust. And, it was really a moment. And I had been doing the podcast for several months, but, coming into the election cycle last year, and no matter how you feel about it, we saw the impact of digital media. We saw the impact of social media and podcast, especially with something like Joe Rogan reaching millions of viewers. When Elon Musk stood on the stage and said, "We are the media," I went, "Oh, he's talking to me. He's talking about us, Jeff." Right? So how do we start to do that? Now it's turned into covering sports, the news, and some politics. We have a mental health network and where we can have a little bit deeper conversations that aren't just about music. I have 4 networks now that are all focused on something a little bit different, and realizing that soaking up a little bit of that digital real estate, even if you don't have all of the content fleshed out, was the first thing. Go buy the properties, right? Go purchase the things, and then you can build on top of that. So right now, the Scene Project Sports Network is really starting to gain some traction. We're doing pregame shows for NFL teams and covering some pro wrestling content. I was at a PGA Tour event earlier this year. It's just been an incredible ride, but it's also predicated on the fact that, one, I never stop talking, so that helps. And I'm willing to talk to anyone and support nonprofit, local charities, local causes, wherever I am. And I think that's something that podcasters that are either just starting out now or are looking how to elevate their platform, it's really something that you need to focus on, and something we're going to talk a lot about with these news stories that we have today.
Yeah, and I'm keeping it with music on the first story. Are you ready to hit the first one?
Yeah, let's get into it.
We're going to Ska Her Way. The Grammy Museum puts women front and center. This comes to us from MXDWN. Tonight, we skank into history as the Grammy Museum holds its first ever all female ska panel, Ska Her Way, or ska, featuring
Ska.
icons like Dunia Best, Gina Rodriguez, Tara Hahn, Karina Denique, Queen P, and more. This powerhouse lineup packed the 200-seat Clive Davis Theater to celebrate women's long overlooked influence across all waves of ska, from Jamaica's rebel roots to two-tone to 90s ska punk and today's revival. Stories range from battling sexism to confronting racism in the scene to discovering community and empowerment on stage. It's a reminder that live events still matter, but put passionate creators in a room, give them a mic, and the culture reveals itself. And yes, there was even a podcast tie-in with the History of LA Ska series, proving how live discussions can fuel long-term content and community after the lights go down. Oh, excuse me, I didn't get enough water before the show today, but this is exactly what Bubba's talking about. This is what Bubba's doing. We'll elaborate a little bit on this a little bit more, but bringing this community together. And in this case, here's a community that maybe got overlooked through a movement. I think in the 90s, I was listening to the Toasters and these New York city bands, and was there enough recognition? And this was a way to talk about, hey, you know what? We were contributing too. We're part of this scene. And not only that, we're probably a bigger part of the scene than many of the guys are. And this was a great way to recognize all that talent on one single stage and bring a community of like-minded fans together. Bubba, I mean, if anybody can talk about this story, it's going to be you.
I love what they did here. This is incredible. Exactly what we were just talking about, right? How do you take these live events and you're already doing these things, and a lot of these panel discussions or, songwriter showcases or whatever it may be that are taking place in a live setting, they're all a podcast is just life, right? Like, it's just capturing life as we know it. So anytime you can put a camera in front of somebody or capture the audio and repurposing that, it's brilliant. When I saw this first story, I kind of got giddy because it's exactly the vision that I saw for your space, Jeff.
Yeah, and what you're talking about too is, yes, they had this live event. They had 200 people come out, and they're making multimedia out of one single event. So you did get the live experience, but they recorded that live experience to be released, distributed, chopped up into shorts. It could be used for months to come, even to build and promote the next event that's coming up. And that's one of the most powerful things about live events is, yes, you are getting this experience that you couldn't get just listening to a podcast. You would never recreate the energy of that room. You could never see the faces of the people who are answering the questions and how they think in the moment and how they react to crowd questions and how they react to the fans. You'd only get the audio when you download the MP3, but events like this really bring podcasts to life.
Right. And I'm not necessarily a podcast purist. To me, YouTubers and those are podcasts, right? Like it's all the same to me. I don't make a differentiation. That may put me in some hot water with some other people that have been podcasting for 10 years and feel that it's audio only, but it's content. Right. And anytime that you can make one piece of content into 4 different platforms that it can now go to, it can be live streamed as, ticketed live event, then put out as a YouTube program and a podcast. You're really hitting on all facets of what, where these people are at, because everyone consumes content differently. Right. A lot of our YouTube watchers aren't necessarily podcast listeners and vice versa.
I was going to say, I was one of those podcast purists that A podcast has to be an MP3 file distributed by an RSS feed to an app or, some sort of aggregator. And I held that position for years and I wouldn't bend. No matter what kind of content you produced, you had to have at least that MP3 element to be a podcast. And I have changed a full 180 on this position. I'm so much more interested in the individual creating their own content and creating their own asset. How they distribute it and what they call it, I don't care. I want to support those independent creators who are taking a chance on themselves. They're rolling the dice for themselves and their future with not answering to anybody. They're creating their own media conglomerate, their own media assets, and that's where we should focus our attention on, not getting lost in the woods or in the weeds about what the definition of a podcast is. And 2017, Jeff would walk up on the stage and slap me and like, "Well, you're crazy." And but this, just like Bubba says, not everybody consumes pod or information the same way. Some people like to read, some people like to watch videos, some people like audiobooks, some people like reading books. You have to be there in the way that they want to consume that content, and being able to do a live event, which might be a different way to consume content. People like to get out of their house. They like to sit down with people, mingle, have a meet and greet before and after. And then they may go back and listen to it anyway. I do that all the time. All the stuff I record, I end up listening to just because I want to remember that moment.
Yeah, and it's not to say that every YouTube video is a podcast, right? Like how-tos on YouTube teaching you how to do something, like that's not a podcast, but every podcast is a YouTube show, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're doing if you're having a conversation with someone, and at this point, because webcams are so easy to come by, or your phone, even if you're just repurposing a Facebook Live that you've done, as long as you're having conversations, to me, that's what a podcast is. And there's really no excuse for anyone who is doing an audio podcast to not turn a camera on, or even just put the audio feed onto the YouTube channel. You have to be everywhere, even if it's just a graphic rolling. Tetragrammaton, Rick Rubin's podcast is mostly audio. Now he has some video and they've advanced, but for a long time it was just like a static picture of a TV with like a little sound wave on it. But people were still there consuming that content in that fashion. So yes, is it perfectly, symmetrical both ways? I don't think so, but every podcast should be on YouTube and in all of the places.
Yeah, 100% agree. The barrier to learn audio is, let's say that on a scale of 1 to 100, that's like 75 to 80 of the 100 of creating a podcast. The amount of extra effort it takes to do video is only those 20 extra points. It's not much harder to add video into your podcast if you get audio right the first time. So figuring out the audio, you have to have good audio regardless if you're just doing an audio podcast or a video podcast. But the skill level to add that video in isn't anywhere near as difficult as just doing the audio. So if you already got to the point where you have the audio done, like Bubba says, turn on a camera. You'll get better and better each time you do it. You'll figure out different things, different lighting, different positioning, but it doesn't take much more effort to just add that video.
Technically, no, right? Like the technical side of it is not much harder. Now, does it take some getting used to talking into a camera? I mean, I was even guilty of it early on until somebody made it a point to me that I had a bad habit of looking at the screen that was above my webcam, right? And looking at the person who can't see me anyway. But I'm trying to engage with them as if I were in the room with them. I'm trying to look them in the eyes, even though their eyes can't see my eyes. So I had to be trained on, hey, look into the camera when you're talking, and to become a little bit of a TV personality and to bring those elements in. But you'll learn it. You can learn those sides. Exactly what you said. There's this much more technical knowledge that you have to have. Now, can you get better at that? Can you bring more cameras and have camera switchers and do a lot more production behind the scenes, getting higher quality cameras? But if you have a 4K webcam at this point, you can make some pretty good quality content from your studio or wherever you're producing your content from on audio.
Absolutely. Let's keep that momentum going to story number 2, comes to us from Buffalo Rising. Anna Gasteyer brings the booze, the brass, and the big holiday energy. Comedy legend Anna Gasteyer is trading SNL sketches for Santa hats as she takes her holiday show, Sugar and Booze, a holiday spectacular, to Rockwell Hall in Buffalo on December 13th. Known for her jazz-infused holiday album and her love of in-the-room moments, Gasteyer says live performance is her natural habitat, where the audience becomes a full-blown character shaping the timing, chemistry, and chaos. Her holiday spectacular blends storytelling, big band swagger, prizes, cocktails, and just enough mischief to make even the grinchiest Grinch crack a smile. And while the show is cozy and nostalgic, its message is timely. In a world glued to screens, people are craving shared energy, connection, and a reason to laugh together, something podcasters can absolutely take to heart when crafting their own live experiences. You want to take this one first, Bubba?
First of all, I love her. She is so funny and such a great comedic actor. And to see that she's bringing this out into the live and bringing it to podcasting and all the things, it's so cool. And I hope this is really a trend for a lot of other people in the world and a lot of other comedians and everyone, just like bring us more content. And I think that with the success of a lot of these comedians releasing their clips out on social media and they're growing their fan bases in that way, I think you're going to continue to see this trend of even the top notch. I mean, this woman's been on SNL for a decade or more, I do believe, right? And bringing that, when you have these upper echelon of performers starting to do it, I think the rest of the industry starts to follow suit. So I'm really excited about this. And the audience as a character is such a cool point that I don't think we've really thought about, because most of our lives, at least for guys our age, Jeff, that it's always been that, but I don't think we identified that audience as a character, right? And
Oh, yeah.
really thought about it that way, but it truly is.
Yeah, an audience can dictate the whole entire show. Some audiences are receptive and almost have a barrier up that no matter what you throw at them, they don't want it. They're just you got to figure out, how do I crack that wall? Some audiences are the easiest audiences you've ever performed for, where everybody's laughing, clapping, they're having a good time, and that energy comes back to the stage. If the performer's struggling because the audience isn't receptive, that makes the show a lot more difficult. But when you treat the audience like this character, like, okay, this is a fun, happy, person. This is a grumpy, miserable person, and you can feed off that energy and try to move the crowd around to have the show that you want to have. And what we see with these celebrities and actors and musicians who already have an established base, they're doing what you're saying. They're building these giant events. They're filling theaters and arenas, and they're really laying the foundation for other people to start doing their own live podcasts. What we saw here at the theater was there's two groups of people right now. There's the people who record in their home studios and their basements, maybe a home office, and then there's people who are like Anna, are filling arenas and theaters, but there's nothing in between. So how do those smaller independent podcasters get to Madison Square Garden? Get to the Benedum Center in Pittsburgh? We have to have some sort of middle ground. And I think when we see these celebrities doing these big events, they're showing the public that podcasting is a form of entertainment. You can do this. Like, if you're doing this at home, why not try a local bar or a restaurant or a coffee shop in your community and try to do your show live? Take that first step to being a bigger and better show. You'll love it. I promise. Everybody who's done a live show, at least here at the theater and we've done some around coffee shops and restaurants, they have the greatest time meeting new people and performing their show in front of people. Even if it's only 10 or 15 people, it's a completely different way to present your podcast, a completely new form of entertainment that most people haven't even thought of. And when we see these bigger events happening, that really is that plow, that groundwork being laid so that other people can follow in the footsteps. And if you're not aware of how much is happening already, Go back. I have 30 episodes of 6 live news stories each right now. There's 180 examples I'm giving you of this is a form of entertainment that is happening now, and it's happening in a big way, and Anna's cashing in on it.
Yeah, Tony Hinchcliffe sold out Madison Square Garden in a podcast that started to like 8 people with some comedians doing 1-minute bits at the original room at, in Los Angeles at the Comedy Store, right? Now they've moved on and it's at the Comedy Mothership in Austin, Joe Rogan's club. But I pull a lot of inspiration from what I've watched them build. I was a huge fan of the show. I watched it growing and growing, and to see what they've done over the last, year or two to bring that into bigger and bigger, stadiums now, right? MSG, come on. It doesn't get any bigger than that. It's just incredible to see what can be done. But also, he showed up every single Monday for 10 years before that ever came about, right? And I think that's most people don't have the stomach to do it for no one. And what is great about the live setting for these is you get that instant feedback. If you're just in your, your spare bedroom or your basement or your detached garage like I am, and you're doing this and you're not getting the downloads and you're not, you're having great conversations, because we all know that feeling as podcasters. After you had a great conversation, you're like, that was awesome, right? That's what got me addicted to podcasting. Was that was great. I learned something new about you that changed my life because of what I've learned about my guests or what they've been able to learn about me. Now you're amplifying that. Even if it's only to 5 people in a coffee shop, you're getting that reaction and connection with those other individuals. And that's what we're craving. And something that this article alluded to, people are craving personal connection with human beings again. We have become so detached by contributing all of our time to these things, right? And spending all of this time. How do we start to use them to find other humans that we want to connect with? And I think guys like me and you, Jeff, like we've kind of used these social networks and things to connect with other podcasters or fans or building something in the real world. Not everyone does that, right? A lot of people are just kind of doom scrolling around. How do we get them off? Well, you have to meet them where they're at first, but then you have to give them the opportunity to come out and to join you without a lot of barriers to that, whether it's cost or it's travel. So having more live podcasting events by whoever is doing them is not just growing our industry, but it's changing the world.
Yeah, there is a wave of people waking up from their phone addiction. And ironically, I really think AI is the thing that's waking people up. I talked about this before, this theory that I have that, we like you mentioned doom scrolling, it's so simple, but now we're getting this AI slop in our doom scrolling. And when you find out that something's AI, you kind of feel duped. You feel like, that wasn't real, or it gives you a gross feeling that you're watching this stuff that has really no human connection. It just looks like it's something that could be real. And that is filling social media, and people do not like it. And I think that's the thing, the catalyst that's waking people up from like, what am I doing? I work all day. I come home, I sit on my phone for 4 or 5 hours, and then I fall asleep. What kind of life am I living? I'm by myself. Even if you have a family of 4 people, you're probably alone in that house on your phone. And people are rejecting this in droves. And these types of events that Bubba's doing, that I'm doing, that people are doing all over the country are going to have an avalanche of people who start coming to these events. We're, I've just been saying I'm a little bit ahead of the curve, and I know that what I've built is something special, and people are starting to trickle in. But it's going to come fast, and if you're in a position where you've been creating content for years, this is the time to start thinking about community events, community theaters, community spaces, and where can you do your show? How can you adapt your show to a live audience? And that's going to take us to our next story, because this is one that I love finding stories that you file under. I never expected that industry to have a podcast, and this one is in the watch industry. Timekeepers and truth tellers, vintage watches take the stage in New York City. This comes in from Hodenkey. In New York City, the Business of Watches podcast brought collectors together for a live recorded conversation with James Lambden, founder of Analog Shift and longtime co-creator of the Red Bar Meetup community. Speaking in front of a packed audience at UBS House of Craft, Lambden broke down the vintage and pre-owned market from value swings to the rise of big retail players while explaining why not all authenticity guarantees are created equal. The event blended market wisdom, storytelling, audience Q&A, proving once again that niche experts shine brightest in live settings where passionate fans can ask real questions. That's a very important part of the story. It's a great reminder that a podcast becomes more than a podcast when you bring your community into the room and let curiosity shape the show. And and here's an industry. I know people are passionate about watches. People spend a lot of money collecting watches, but I never would have thought that this is an industry that needs a podcast. Or here's an event where we can bring people together, and these people are capitalizing on this. They're probably retailers and collectors, so keep that in mind. Maybe your business is in some sort of industry. Well, there's fans of that industry, people who love that, and they're doing an event where they're bringing watch collectors together, watch retailers together, putting them in a room, and they're just talking about this one thing they love, this one accessory that goes on your wrist. They've made a whole little media empire out of it.
It's brilliant. I think it's so interesting. I'm not a watch guy. I've never had the money to be a watch guy. But every niche has diehard fans, right? Now we have some pretty big brands out there in the world, the NFL being one of the top, that have millions of fans. But even the watch community probably has several 100,000 people worldwide that are rabid about watches and everything that goes on with them. And you even think back to, before pre-internet, that there was people that were writing books on these things, and there were people that were buying those books. And this isn't something necessarily new. It's just a new form of media that's getting it out there. I love this, Jeff. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think this is so cool.
Yeah, you mentioned a really cool thing about, people used to read books, but now they can go experience the book. They can see the retail value in real person and have this immersive event. I was watching a few episodes of Billy Corgan has a podcast, and he did a great one with Devo. And I just started thinking about his business model of his podcast, where he's brought these rock legends on, Devo, and he's just talking about the history, how they got started, what some of the meanings behind the songs were. And just like you said there, what he's doing is what we would have read in a Rolling Stone magazine as a static article. Instead of reading that article, I'm experiencing the article live as the author, Billy Corgan, is interviewing the band Devo. It's like you're reading this immersive Rolling Stone article in video form. And that's what these events are like. You could read a book, a trade publication about how much is a 1920 Timex or Rolex worth, with the gold plate. I don't even know anything about watches either, but you could read a book and get a value, or you could talk to people who are actually doing it in this immersive event. And I just love that. I didn't expect to find a watch podcast this week.
Right. Well, because we're not watch people, we're not looking for it. And you mentioned something off the top of the show that, like, because you love something, there's a pretty good chance that other people love that too. Why not talk about it? And if you're already having these committees, which it seemed like they were from this story, that they were already doing these smaller meetups and doing Q&As and things like that, the podcasting element of it is literally somebody just showing up with a camera or a microphone and recording it, and then putting that content out there as a show and doing a little bit of polish to say, hey, here's something you might be interested in. Side note, huge Billy Corgan fan. So I'm going to have you send me a link to this new one. I listened to his whole 33 podcast where he went over his songs on his new album and told the stories behind this massive album with a couple of his hosts from his wrestling outfit that came on and hosted the podcast. I'm thrilled to hear that he's doing that. I grew up a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan. Family's from the Chicago area, so a little bit of regional bias there. But Billy is such an incredible and a deep individual that I bet it's awesome conversations that he's having with some of these other rock legends.
Yeah, the questions are really great and deep. He's one of those interviewers that can meander a question through a story. That's like my favorite type of question to ask when you're kind of figuring things out as you're asking the question. And I think if you like Billy Corgan, I think you'll really like the series.
And it's a lot of the same elements of what would make his. Now, I haven't been on the biggest stages in the world and been a number one, chart topping artist, but that's the reason that I feel my show with the Scene Projects brings so much value to the music community, because I'm not asking top level questions, right? I can get very I've been there and done that. I'm a songwriter myself. I know what it takes to be inspired to write something or touring. And I'm not asking the superficial type questions that someone who's not in the industry would be asking. And that's what makes our show very interesting. And I imagine with Billy Corgan, it's even more so because the man has been there and done all of it. He's one of the biggest rock stars that we have on the planet still.
Speaking of big rock stars, how about a 14-year-old live streaming to 15,000 people with the Pope? We have the Pope on the line. A 14-year-old goes live with 15,000 people watching from the Baltimore Sun. In Indianapolis, a national audience watched a remarkable first. Pope Leo XIV taking questions digitally from U.S. students, including 14-year-old Mia Smothers of Baltimore, live stream from the National Catholic Youth Conference to a cheering auditorium back home. Mia, one of 5 students selected nationwide, opened the Q&A with a vulnerable question about mistakes and mercy, prompting the Pope to speak about forgiveness, hope, and a reality that sin never has the final word. With 15,000 people in the room and countless others streaming worldwide, this moment showed how powerful remote engagement can be when tech, tradition, and community collide. It also shows how a simple digital connection, just one kid with one question, can turn into a global shared experience that feels as live and electric as any stage performance. And this is like we are at the peak of technology right now. Can you imagine? We have the technology in our houses to connect the world together. You can go live with your computer, your microphone, your camera, and you could have just as much technology as made this event happen. And that this theater, I always joke, this theater is like a portal to the world. If you remember Star Trek, they would always go down to that little place. They say, "Beam me up, Scotty." Well, this stage is just like that because when you're watching, Bubba's over here to my left on the stage, even though he's in South Dakota. We have people leaving comments. We have questions coming in. If we were open to the public right now, the studio audience could be asking Bubba questions from Tarentum here outside of Pittsburgh to South Dakota. This really becomes this full circle, and that's what this conference capitalized on. They had everybody together, 15,000 people in a room, and they're like, "Hey, we're just gonna ask the Pope some questions."
Well, and we are in our lifetimes, we're going to see the quantum world become a reality. And then you're talking about instantaneous transfer of information to where Jeff, I will be looking like I'm sitting next to you, holographic and those kind of things. We are going to see it in our lifetime. I know it seems far off, but I just read something yesterday that China's deploying robots to patrol their borders now. So I think the future is a lot closer than we even think about. And exactly what you said about that stage, exactly why when I saw it and your whole concept, it's why I got it. Because I've had the opportunity with my podcasting journey to interview some really smart people. Now, South Dakota may be, 20 years behind the times in most things, but because of the internet, I'm able to stay on the forefront of technology. And this is incredible. And look what it became. And we're seeing, and children ask the best questions, don't they? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that connection in real time, you just can't you couldn't have done that 20 years ago, and now you have the power to just do that in your home, and that's what's the important takeaway here is what you mentioned. Let me the 2 takeaways. I wanna go back to something you said, AI and China, robots controlling the border. Now, we know that there's a wave of AI that's gonna replace white collar workers. They're gonna just wipe people out. An AI can read a spreadsheet better than, 10 accountants. So we know that at some point corporations aren't gonna side with people, they'll side with profits. They have a history of doing that. So we know that they're probably gonna replace a substantial portion of the workforce. But what AI can't replace is you and your authenticity. If you have a show, you have an asset. If you have a community, you have an asset. AI can't replace you on stage entertaining people. Never. One of the reasons I built this theater was to diversify. I can, yes, I have an income from a job, but I have an income from a theater and I can build on that and that can become something bigger and that nobody can take this away. AI cannot recreate a real life in-person experience. And if you have something like that, the passion that Bubba has for sports and music, he's building an asset that can't be replaced by AI. I'm doing the thing with the theater and I'm helping small creators do things that can't be replaced by AI. And this event with 15,000 people of like-minded thoughts, of faith, they're coming together and they're interviewing the Pope, which is crazy to think that that's even something that was possible for a 14-year-old 25 years ago. But here we are in a time where these authentic in-person events mean so much to so many people.
It's incredible what we can do now. Most of my show is built off of over the internet interviews. Now, I have live events that I've filmed and things that we've done, but most of what I've done has never been in a traditional studio. Another reason why I fell in love with your theater is like, oh man, I would love to shoot content there, right? And all I have to do is really show up because you've done everything. All the cameras and the space and everything is already there. You just have to show up and have conversations. That's what I'm trying to work into and build a network of theaters like yours that I can just travel around, talk to the people, and organize events around those places. Because at its essence, AI is always going to be artificial. It's not going to be interactive and to be so. And we use a lot of AI to amplify what we're doing for a lot of our, not necessarily content creation, but for the editing process and a lot of these things, because I couldn't afford to pay a human being to spend the hours and hours and hours it would take them to do it when the AI can do it in a matter of minutes. Now, is it going to replace me as the host and as the networker who finds all of the people? No, it can never do that.
You have to put in the work to make AI an asset. Like I use it. This theater is basically a one person show. I was telling Bubba beforehand, I'm here by myself. I ran the song before I got the recording going. We got all these things happening, and it's just me right now in the theater running things. And a large portion of that is AI. I give Bubba, he got a 12-page document about the stories that we're covering, where I have my teleprompter page in giant 18-point font. And then I have bullet points of things that are related to the show as a fallback in case we get lost or, something to come back on. But in the theme song, I always get nervous playing the theme song for musicians because I'm like, hey, yeah, I used AI to create that theme song, but I need those things to be able to bring this thing to life. This is kind of like the prototype, the proof of concept. And as this grows, I'm going to use less and less AI and rely more and more on people. This is a community event, a community space. But if you have the knowledge, you can use AI to amplify that knowledge. You can't use AI to become something better, but you can use AI to be a better person. So what do I mean by that? If I didn't know anything about nuclear physics and I wanted to just go into AI and ask it about nuclear physics, I could get some very basic explanation, and then that would be the extent of my knowledge. I wouldn't know anything more. But if I'm building a theater and I'm entertaining people, and as I do that more and more, I'm getting more and more knowledge about ticket sales, about event planning. And I start to put that back into AI, my experience. AI is going to amplify my knowledge and experience because I have it already. And it's going to allow me to do more and more things by myself because I have the foundation. So we say, don't just be that person that relies on AI to be somebody. Be the person first and then become 1,000 times better through the use of AI. But you have to have a foundation.
You have to have something to amplify. You have to bring in something to feed this. And for me, I'm recording sometimes 5, 6 interviews in a day. There's no way I would have the time to sit down and meticulously edit all of these things. I use a service called Podcast AI that does all of it for me. So all I have to do is record it, plug it in, it runs all of it, it chops it all up into shorts, Jeff, and it's done in a matter of minutes. I could never replicate that. And I paid humans to do this. I couldn't afford it, right? Especially as these ideas are new and are not making any money. I can't wait for the sponsor support to be able to pay for this, so many hours of this human being's time to do those things. What I would like to do is to get so big that I have to pay a human being to do the copy and pasting that I'm doing now so that I can have more conversations.
Absolutely. Speaking of energy hogs, I don't know if that's a terrible transition, but we're going to go to our fifth story tonight about EVs. Plugged in and powered up, V2G takes the live stage in Melbourne. This comes to us from The Driven. At the Everything Electric show in Melbourne, the Driven podcast went live to break down the future shaping potential of vehicle to grid technology, or V2G for short, which allows electric vehicles to feed power back into Australia's clean energy network. Recorded on site with an engaged audience, the episode explored how EV owners could eventually support the grid, lower energy bills, and help stabilize renewable power during peak times. It's a perfect example of how taking a podcast into a live environment elevates the conversation, real time reactions, hands on demos, and a tech savvy crowd that's eager to ask questions and challenge assumptions. When you put innovation on stage, you don't just inform, you energize. And I work in the automotive industry, so I always come to these stories with a little bit of skepticism. If you had to charge your EV to get it a full battery, and then a lot of cars do integrate with houses now. If there's a power outage, you can plug your EV into the house. Isn't it just going to drain the battery? That even though you're giving it back to the grid, I'm not sure how you get more energy into the car, but
Now, I challenge any electric vehicle to run when it's negative 30 here in South Dakota for 2 weeks straight in February and to maintain its ability. So, is EV the end all be all? I don't think so. But things like this to reduce emissions and to bring these kind of, how cool. And then not only are they talking about it, because what would usually happen is that these smart people are all in a room talking to each other, and then that conversation never leaves that room. Now, because it's a podcast, that it goes out there, and even though we might be too stupid to understand what they're saying, we at least are informed about what could be coming in the future. And if we are so inclined to research and study this and get more, informed on it, now at least we know what's out there, where even 5 years ago, this would have never hit the market.
yeah, it would have been buried in a trade publication or only a small event at a conference. But because they're recording it and broadcasting it and extending the reach of that conference is another benefit of doing these live shows at an event is
And
you're
then it's
extending the reach of that event.
exactly. And now it's on a show that's, talking mostly just about podcasting in the news. But now we've brought this out and we're, introducing it to other people that would never have an idea what this is. And maybe that person that hears about this story from our show is the next person that has the big idea. Well, why wouldn't they do this? Right? We don't know what electrical engineer might be consuming our content on a whim on a Saturday morning that becomes a catalyst in this next big idea. It's incredible what's happening. I say it all the time on my show, Jeff, that podcasting is how the world is healing itself. It's changing the world in every single conversation, and you just don't know what that is. So keep talking and keep podcasting.
Is no better way to spread information. And I realized why I picked this because I do like the next story of Climate Town. Climate Town is a YouTube channel that does these really snarky stories about the environment. It's amazing YouTube show, but I was must have been going with an environmental theme to close out the show. And And Climatown is going live. This is a YouTube channel doing a one night only at SF Sketchfest. This comes to us from Eventbrite. Climatown, the YouTube powerhouse known for turning climate science into razor sharp comedy, is taking its research fueled chaos to the Great Star Theater for a one night only live show at the San Francisco Sketchfest on January 21st. Raleigh Williams and Matt Nelson will perform a full episode before it hits YouTube and promise they'll never perform that version live again. With 600,000 subscribers and millions of views, this is a chance for fans to see Climatown's blend of humor, activism, and deep dives in a totally new format. It's a perfect reminder how creators can reward superfans with exclusive live experiences that feel special, unrepeatable, and worth the ticket. The kind of moment that turns a passive viewer into an active community member. You want to start off our last story?
This is really cool because it is coming from the podcasting side first and the YouTuber side first, and now bringing that into a live setting. So this is really cool to me to see that people are getting it from both sides of the aisle now and bringing that out. Man, how cool would it have been if Mythbusters was a live show?
Yeah, I would have went if they would have toured the country. I know they did do some like special appearances, but had they gone on tour, even if it was the same show in every city, I still would have went.
Yeah, you would have followed them around from city to city because you're never going to get, because of the live format and because every audience is its own entity and is its own character in the story, it's always going to be different. And I saw this I was in a battle of the bands up in Minnesota last year. Now, my band didn't win, but I saw what they had done. And I was like, you could take all the same bands on tour. And because you're doing it, part of the judging is off of crowd participation or interaction, that you could shake it up, redo the order of the performers, redo the crowd and different judges, and you could get a different winner every single week taking something like that on the road. This is, while not the same thing, is really cool to see that people are getting it and are bringing their content out into it, rewarding their fans that have been with them. I mean, 600,000 subscribers on YouTube is huge. That's not the biggest, but that's massive for someone who's independently creating media. That's a massive fan base. And now you're able to reward some of those listeners and viewers by bringing them in, and they get to be in the room with these people where they felt like they've been in the room with them for years, possibly. But now you actually get to shake their hand and look them in the eye and to tell them thank you. And you get to enjoy the show too. I think that's so awesome.
Yeah, when you watch the YouTube channel, you know this is a polish. They took multiple takes. They wanted to get the storytelling perfect. And now they're gonna like, hey, let's try this in a live environment. You get one take, one shot, and you're gonna make mistakes in a live environment. I made some today, but we keep the show rolling. And if you've watched Raleigh do his, even on the show, on the YouTube channel, you could tell it's a little crazy. It's a little close to the edge on some of the takes, and it's a very well done show, and one that I do enjoy. And for $35, you can spend a night, probably a 90-minute, 2-hour show of them putting this together, and you get to see how it works in real time, how they react off each other, and seeing something that you watched, perfectly polished on YouTube, then seeing live is a whole new experience. I mean, if we talk about the great bands of the 80s when I was a kid that were touring, we heard Bon Jovi on the radio every day, but I got to see Bon Jovi with Cinderella at the Civic Arena in like 1986. And it was so amazing to see these people you've heard on the radio, you saw on MTV, and then they're in front of you on the stage. You're like, cut it out. This is ridiculous. I can't believe I'm seeing them perform these hit songs live. And that's what we're seeing with podcasters. That's what we're seeing with YouTubers. They're taking their talents to the stage and amplifying that audience experience.
And that's a two-way street. As someone who's spent time on stage for most of my life at this point, I can attest to that. But also, I saw an interview with James Hetfield, the lead singer of Metallica, who's been doing this and at the top of the rock world, a legend in his field. And the interviewer asked him, like, what keeps you guys going? You know, you've been doing this for a long time. You've played all the biggest, like, you've done it all. What keeps you going? And he's like, the people. The fact that I can look out there, lock eyes with one person, and to see them light up charges me up. I'm ready to go, and I want to deliver the performance of a lifetime every single time that happens. And that's going back to AI. AI can't replace that. It cannot replace human interaction and connection with another human being. And it's really cool to see that people who have grown a large fan base online are now getting to bring that into a live setting. And maybe it's their first time doing a live thing like this ever. And they're going to be in a room full of their fans, and they're going to get that feeling that I've gotten on stage performing for thousands of people. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, nothing replicates coming off stage after performing to a live crowd. And if we're going to perform to a live crowd, no one better to talk to. Bubba Startz. Bubba, that's going to wrap up the show. We didn't tell people how to connect with you, where to find you. What's the best way to find your sports show, your music shows?
You find everything at thesceneprojects.com. We're all over YouTube. That's where we're definitely trying to grow the most right now. I want to hit that 500 subscriber mark by the end of the year. I think we only need about 69 more. Nice. And we're going to keep on pushing. So appreciate you having me on, Jeff. This was so much fun. I can't believe it's over already.
It does. It goes so fast. You never know, for an hour, like that was our show. Almost felt like it was like 5 minutes. But yeah, I'll put all those links in the show notes. Make sure you check out Bubba, support what he's doing, not just in South Dakota, but doing those tours all around the area, the Midwest. I'm sure you have some dates coming up. We'll find those on the website. The links in the show notes. That means I'm going to, my plugs. I got Poduty shirts, $10, 4 colors, 5 sizes to get the early bird price. I'm just selling them for $10. I want to see them out in the public and see people wearing them and rocking them. And they just arrived last Saturday. Poduty hats are here. You can get your Poduty hat. They're in the snapback. It says a snapback on the picture there. That must be the style of hat. And we got some upcoming shows. We got the Pittsburgh podcast meetup. You can watch it in the theater. It's free. 6 p.m. next Saturday, December 6th. Or if you can't make it to Pittsburgh, watch the live stream at 7 p.m. I live stream 1 hour. It's the Q&A portion where we tackle your most pressing podcast questions. We go into everything from what's an MP3 file to how do I distribute it through an RSS feed? Is a video a podcast? Even questions that we answer today. We've got the Jingle Bell Jam. We got a talent show December 20th from 6 to 8 p.m. This benefits the local food bank and the Need Cafe, which is a donation-based cafe. It also supports other food initiatives. They have a community dinner that they do once a month. It's the Need Cafe, ironically, started by Bon Jovi. Another 2 Bon Jovi references in one show. We've got the audio fiction primer. If you don't like just talking into a microphone and telling stories, well, you could write a drama, and Jessica Sutton's going to show you how to do this after Christmas. It's the Saturday after Christmas. And we got the humorous podcast. I'll tell you what's not humorous, me coughing on the microphone. It's coming up in 2026. We'll have dates and deets at poduty.com, PODUTY.com. Bubba, thank you again for joining me. This was everything I hoped to be and so much more. This was a total blast.
I had so much fun, Jeff, and I just want to tell you, I'm so proud of you, man. What you're building is not just important, but it's really entertaining, and I hope people show up for you and start filling up that theater and continue to support everything that you're doing. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. If you build it, they will come. And I've got one last question for you.
What time is it? What time is it? Oh, it's time for Poduty and the news. Poduty and the news. The only live news podcast about podcasting from the state. Poduty and the news. Poduty and
only live news podcast about podcasting.
Yeah,
from
dude, if you
the-
asked anyone to create that for you as a musician, they'd be like, whoop, this guy. I'm not doing that.
Why do we want that song again?
You want me to say what? How to Poduty? No.
What's a Poduty? I don't even know.
So it sounds like what my cat left in my garage for me earlier today. Oh my God.
I'm gonna get canceled with this
Oh
Poduty
my
stuff.
God. So we had an outdoor cat that I've been feeding, and it's getting cold now. So I was like, okay, you can stay in. She usually goes outside and uses the bathroom. And I opened my door to the garage today and I was like, oh, there's the cat in here. There's cat. I should have put a box in for her, but she'd been good. But it was me. I'll find a big. I was like, this man was the size of a dog's.
Like, what are you eating out there?
Yeah, I'm burning sage in here, and
That's a super Poduty.
that was a super dude, what a cool show, man.